guys, how's it going? So a few different things today. We're gonna start with some garden cleanup up here in Versailles. Nothing major, but you can see right behind me the supertunias have finally succumbed to our cold temperatures. They're not looking super great, so we're gonna clean those out. And then we're gonna work on this flower bed over here, right behind me in the corner, doing some perennial cutback and possibly some leaf mulch. Then we are gonna go to the greenhouse and get some dahlias packed up for storage. And we're gonna make a butternut squash turkey chili utilizing butternut squash we grew, as well as onions, garlic, and green onions from the garden. Seemed like a beautiful fall day for kind of a plethora of different projects. Okay, so let's just start with a closer look at what we've got going on here. Supertunia Mini Vista Pink Star was what was right here. They did last for quite a long time and they were gorgeous. Supertunia Mini Vista Indigo in the other corners. So indigo in these two, pink stars in those two. All I need to do today is pull them up and rake up the area. I mean, that's super easy. And then over here, this flower bed has been a little bit of a work in progress. I still have quite a bit of things that I would love to add to this area, but this was not here. This was not a flower bed just a couple of seasons ago. It was actually all gravel. This extended all the way over to the boxwood hedge was all that was right here. So these boxwoods up front are newer, as are all the plants inside here. So we're gonna be cutting back like the Amsonia, cleaning up the foxgloves, probably pruning back. We've got 3 Queen of Sweden roses. We won't do a hard prune, but we'll just clean them up a bit. We planted some phlox in here. Oh my word, those phlox were gorgeous. So there's a bunch right there, and there's a little grouping there we'll clean up. The poppies still look really good. Anything that has nice looking leaves we'll still leave. There's some Kodiak orange Durvellas in here. You get close on these. I know it's very bright, but boy, these shrubs have just been a real pleasure in this area. Their new growth is kind of orangey color. They're just starting to put on some more fall color and they bloom these really sweet little yellow blooms. Then we have a panicum called Totem Pole right there, a June Snow Dogwood. And there is a Japanese maple in here, as well as some oak leaf hydrangeas. They kind of suffered a little bit from chlorosis this year. This one doesn't look as bad, but you can see some of the fall color there. Some of the cafe cream foxgloves I started from seed. So yeah, this flower bed has been kind of fun to start developing, and you know, we just have a few things in there. I'm gonna be hopefully getting some leaf mulch added in, and that's what I've been doing every single fall. We put a nice layer of leaf mulch in there, and then we end up mulching over the top of it with our regular mulch in the spring, and those leaves are just working their way down in. Because when you're dealing with soil that has just been sitting under gravel and been like walked on and driven over, that's really tough, poor soil. So I think it's coming around. All right, so I think we should just get started with these supertunias and get them pulled out. That took about 10 minutes to pull all those things, and I didn't really worry about raking it up too much because of course we've got locust trees full of leaves still that can come and make a blanket right on top of the soil. I just kind of raked in if there were any holes left from where the root balls came out, which there really wasn't a lot of that. They weren't super deeply rooted or like rooted in really hard anyway, so they were really easy to pull up. And then I just blew off the brick circle on the outside. Nice and tidy. And here's my load so far. Now I don't have an enormous amount to cut out of this garden right here, or that flower bed rather, so I think I'm gonna try to fit as much as I can in here before we take it to the pile. I think I'll just start in this corner with the Amsonia and work my way over. What are you doing? I see you made it outside. So some of these spent foxglove flower stalks still have a bunch of seed left in their seed pods. So I'm gonna go ahead and shake them around in this area, and hopefully the seed will just sit here and take off in the spring. See all those little specks? That's just a fraction of what's in one of these seed stalks. Okay, so this area is done for now, minus the leaf mulch. Looking a little bit tidier. It's nice to have those roses kind of tamed down a little bit and have this area cleaned up a bit. Always feels good. And I've always done the majority of our garden cleanup in the fall. I kind of started that back when I worked at the garden center, just because you're putting in such long hours in the spring. I was there usually around 7:30 in the morning, not leaving until after 6. And I volunteered for every single overtime hour I could, like on Sundays. This is prior to having Benjamin, of course, a long time ago. Because I always had a massive plant IOU I needed to pay off. So I had to work a bunch of extra hours to pay for my habit. There are worse things. So anyway, it just worked out better for me to do garden cleanup in the fall, and then I could just rest. Like in the wintertime, I knew that the garden could wake up in the spring and just start growing for the most part. There are some things I leave up though. Like I don't do any harsh rose pruning in the fall. I leave up anything that still looks nice, I'll leave up no matter what it is. And then a lot of perennial grasses that aren't massive we leave, and sedums, Rudbeckia, echinaceas, those things that have forage for wildlife. Things like that. But for the most part, it's kind of nice to have things tidied up in the fall, and you can do it in batches. Like today, doing this little bit in the flower bed, I know I'm gonna probably have to come back through and do one more little pass through before, you know, we get snow, if I make it to back here before we get snow. And that way it's never a huge chore. Okay, so now we need to take the load of goodies to our pile that's out on the new property. It's big. Look at the size of that pile. You can see where most of it came from, the cut flower garden. Isn't that nuts? I can't believe just a month ago what this looked like versus what it looks like now. Here's the start of where the dahlias were. We've got a couple more rows of tubers and corms, the gladiolus over there. I think they're called corms, right? Anyway, we got a couple more rows to lift. I didn't get to them in time, and we had that 15-degree night, and the tubers are still okay, which is amazing to me because we've been in like the teens and lower 20s. So we're gonna finish that up today. I'm gonna pack up some of the ones that are drying in the kitchen. In fact, when we go in to make the chili, I'll show you all of the tubers sitting on my kitchen floor drying right now. It's kind of chaos at the moment. We did leave a few things up. This is a total side note, but we left the parsley because that usually stays pretty nice even with a lot of cold. We kept the beets and the carrots because those root crops usually their flavors even improve after they've been, you know, through some cold nights. But everything else is gone. And I do think we're planning on putting together a video just with like an overview of this space, talking about drip tape, our experience with that, and what I found worked and what I found didn't work. Kind of the high tunnel and the irrigation in there, what we thought about the percentage of shade cloth that we used, and all of that kind of stuff. I feel like, you know, once it gets colder, it'll be a good time to sit down and kind of put all of those notes down on paper and then share with you guys what we learned. And this right here, we're actually gonna have a great big bonfire on Halloween, which is in 2 days. 1 day. Tomorrow? No, 2 days. Anyway, the kids, Benjamin and his cousins will love it. And next year we'll be working on our compost bins. I don't know that we're gonna actually get to them this fall, but this is how we're dealing with a lot of the real woody, like the woody sunflower stalks and stuff. The rest of it, like all the soft stuff, the vine crops, the tomatoes, all of the vegetable crops, they all went to a friend's house that has pigs. So we utilize as much of it that way and give it away as we can. And then this stuff we're just gonna burn right now because it would take forever to break down, and we're just not set up for that right yet. Next year. that. That is like gold right there. It does a pretty good job of shredding. Like these right here are really finely shredded. There are a few bigger ones, but I'm also going to be sprinkling some blood meal on top of the leaves. So it's essentially going to act like a mini compost pile on top of the soil surface. We've got our carbon or our brown source right here, and this is our nitrogen source, which will help the leaves break down faster. So I'm going to get this all spread out. I'll sprinkle some of this on, and then we're done in this bed for now. And there we have it. So I was able to leaf mulch really like, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet into this flower bed. I'll have to work my way back as we get more leaves down on the ground. And then I sprinkled some blood meal on top, which I've never had any problems with wildlife and the blood meal. So I don't know if that's something that you guys have dealt with before. If I notice any problem, I'll just apply some Repel-Zol to the area, but it's never been an issue up to this point. So I will string a hose out and kind of water that all down so it kind of forms a little bit of a mat. That way no wind will affect the leaves, it won't blow any of them away. But that's pretty much it for the leaf mulch. I mean, it's such a good way to recycle the leaves coming off of your trees. Of course, you wouldn't want to use any leaves where you've been dealing with any kind of issue, any kind of fungal thing, any kind of disease or insect problem, because you don't want to perpetuate that in your flower bed. So if that's the case, I would get rid of those leaves. But if they're just fine, healthy leaves falling off your trees like we normally have, those are great to use in a situation like this. And like I said, if I have any issues with the animals digging around, I'll apply Repel-Zol, which I just had to do to all of these containers. First time ever we've had anything dig at the containers, and I think it's because I used bulb tone in there. It must be, I think we've got a fox coming through, and I think it must be like a good smell to that fox, and so it's trying to get at the bulb tone. It doesn't mess with my daffodil bulbs, but I did apply Repel-Zol and it hasn't messed with the pots since. So I'm thinking that I have a pump sprayer mixed up with it right now. You can get it in a granulated form as well, but I just went through and sprayed the tops of all these pots, and so far so good. Okay, now that that is done, we're gonna head to the greenhouse and pack some dahlias. Okay, we're in the greenhouse now, and I've got a bunch of dahlia tubers that have been drying in our kitchen for the last little bit over 24 hours. And I am just experimenting with a few different storage methods just to see what kind of results I get. I haven't done an enormous amount of dahlia storage in my day, and there are so many opinions out there on how to properly do it, and I really think that you can have success with a lot of different ways, but I think it has a lot to do with your climate. I think it has a lot to do with how you're storing them, what temperature you're storing them in, and if it's consistent, and what your humidity level is naturally in your area, which we are very, very dry. So last time, like today, I'm going to be adding a tiny bit of water to my vermiculite, which is my storage medium. And that kind of, like, a lot of you guys were like, why would you add moisture to it? We have to. If we don't, ours will dry out so fast, and that's why I can't let my tubers dry for much more than 24 hours, because they just immediately start to desiccate. And I know it's different for everybody. You might live in an area where it takes 2 weeks for yours to dry because your humidity level is so high. It's just one of those things you have to play with. There is absolutely no hard and fast way to do it. So I thought it would be interesting to just try a couple things. So we do have a local dahlia grower who is amazing. And I do refer a lot to Floret Flower and Swan Island Dahlias. I watched all of their stuff, read their stuff on how they store their tubers, and really what I did in our last video follows quite similar to what they both do. What our guy in the area does that I didn't do in the video is he does use a fungicide called Captan right here. Which he dusts the tubers with, and I'm going to do that today. I'm also not going to rinse these tubers. I'm just going to knock as much of the dry soil as I can off. I'll dust them with Captan, and then we'll put them in slightly moistened vermiculite. And when I say slightly moistened, it is just enough moisture to make the medium feel cool. It doesn't even clump together. You can't actually feel that there's moisture in it, and that's the difference. Like, it's not wet. I'll try to get as close in on it as possible after I wet it down so you guys can see what it looks like. So here I have my setup. I've got my crate here ready to go. You want a crate that is breathable. I'm storing in burlap because that is what I have a lot of. A lot of people use newspaper, some people use plastic. Here are some of the tubers here that are ready. Like this one is all cleaned up and ready to go right there. A lot of the soil just knocked right off of that. This one as well. I'm individually labeling tubers. I just decided in the end that would be the easiest way to go. And since we ended up digging in such like groups, it's not a big burden to just write one of these out and make sure I'm labeling everything properly. And so in that case, I just use a Sharpie and a pull through nursery tag. And then we're storing in vermiculite. Now, if you're storing as many as I am, you gotta buy the big bags. I got these down at the garden center. I've already gone through 2 bags. I've got 2 more sitting here and 2 more in the barn. Oh, and while I'm right here, I may as well show you. This is what I mixed up the other night to spray on our containers with bulbs, and a new area that we just planted in the garden with bulbs. And I just mixed it up in here, a gallon of it, and just sprayed everything down, and so far it's working great. I just dropped it off in here because this is the last place that I ended up that night. Okay, so I'm gonna set up the camera so you can see a little bit closer up what I'm doing, and then hopefully it'll make sense. See that right there? It's still really dry. Like, it doesn't clump together at all. It doesn't even really feel damp. It just gives the tiniest bit of moisture so that our tubers don't desiccate. Again, that's for our super dry climate here in Eastern Oregon. Okay, then a thin layer at the bottom here of the crate. Then we start packing tubers in. Some of them are a lot bigger and a lot harder to pack, and some are nice and small like this. Oops, almost forgot to dust them with Captan. Okay, so that's what my first layer looks like before I pack more vermiculite on top. Okay, so I'm gonna try to hold the camera and pour this at the same time. We'll see. Okay, so they're pretty much all covered. I don't worry about covering them 100% if I've got some that stick up taller, because I will nest like 1, 2, 3 maybe groups and then cover those. And when I cover those, this one will get covered up as well. So that's basically what I'm gonna do today. So the only difference in my method today versus what I did the other day is I'm not rinsing them. I'm just removing as much of the soil as I can, which is all dry. They're all dried up and ready. There's no moisture left on the tubers. And then I'm sprinkling Captan fungicide on these. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when I get them out of storage. And the really exciting part about this for me today is that the electricians are here. They're finishing the electrical in our root cellar. Then Eddie, who's building the root cellar, he's gonna finish this weekend. So I will be able to move all the dahlias in there, as well as all of the squash and pumpkins I wanna save, and my potatoes and onions and peppers and all of that stuff. I'm so excited about that. So excited. Right now the dahlias have been hanging out in our back sun porch because it doesn't get below freezing in there, but it stays really consistently cool. So I knew that they were gonna have to hang out there for maybe a week or so before they got to be in the root cellar. So just really quick, I wanted to show you what a tuber looks like after it's been separated from the main clump. I'm storing them like this because it's a little bit easier, and then I'll divide them later. But see how like this tuber right here, it comes up and it skinnies down. That's the neck of the tuber. And then on the kind of main stalk area here, there's like a little bit of a swollen point, like it kind of bulbs out. And that's where the growth point is, like the eye of the tuber. And when you go to divide, you need to make sure that each tuber has an eye, and not every single one will. So sometimes you can cut it off to where there's 2 tubers attached to where there's an eye. But this is a really good example because we've got a nice tuber, skinnies down right there, there's the neck, and then there's the swollen part, and you can see the growth point right here. I thought it might be helpful just to show you that. So this is what I will plant next year. And some of them, like the weaker clumps that have kind of skinny tubers, I'll probably just plant whole. And then if I've got nice big, like good looking tubers, I'll plant them singly like this. And here's another fantastic example. Really beautiful tuber. There's its neck. And then let me see if I can get focus here. You can see the growth point right there. And then for this one, there's the tuber, the neck, and the growth point right here. So I have to be very careful when I cut this to make sure that each one of those gets its eye. first crate is done. So with the extra bit of burlap that's kind of hanging over the side, I tuck it in as best I can. And then I put another burlap sack on top and tuck it down the side. So I've got a nice kind of lid right there. And usually like it looks tall, but it kind of everything settles and I'm able to stack them one on top of the other. Okay, so I don't have that many more to do. Just these right here and those right there. So they ended up condensing down to just 3 crates. When you get them all cleaned up and you start packing them away like nicely, they really do, like you don't need as many crates as you think. Like it started out 5 crates and ended up 3. So those will just join the other ones in the back sun porch until the root cellar has been buttoned up completely. So now I'm gonna head in to start making our chili. Before I do that, I'm going to grab green onions from the garden and butternut squash from the barn, and I'm hoping that it's ripe. We grew a variety called honey nut, and they're a lot smaller than traditional, like the Waltham. I think that's the variety. Anyway, they're a lot smaller and they didn't 100% ripen on the vine. So I'm hoping that they're really good. If not, I can sub a different kind of squash for it. And then we need to go to the basement and get an onion and some garlic. So here's our green onions right here. These are just going to be used as a garnish. Looks like everything in here is still a little bit wilted down from the night last night. I think it was 28 last night. These are beautiful. Oh, the smell of them just reminds me of spring for some reason. I love it. Okay, and here are the butternut squash. You can see how much smaller they are. So I'm gonna grab 2 because the recipe does call for 1 pound. I think that will be good. Down in the basement, you can see my onions here. I think I'm gonna grab 1 candy onion. Isn't that beautiful? They're actually storing really nicely so far down here. And a head of garlic. Here we go. All right, so there's all the stuff from the garden that we grew that we'll use in this recipe. And here is the recipe. I used it as a spoon rest the last time I cooked it, so it looks kind of, I don't think I've shared this recipe with you before. If I have, I'm sorry. It's one of our kind of go-tos, so we make it quite often. Butternut squash and turkey chili. It's from All Recipes. I'll try to find it and link it down below. But it's really simple. It doesn't take a ton of ingredients. And it usually lasts us for at least 2 dinners and 1 lunch. Here's the rest of the ingredients minus the turkey. So olive oil, tomato sauce, petite diced tomatoes, diced green chilies. We'll only use about half that can. Kidney beans, garbanzo beans, chicken broth, cumin, and chili powder. And look at all of these dahlia tubers sitting on our kitchen floor. These are what are drying. So like this is the next batch right here that I have to pack up because that's the next batch that was dug, so they'll be dry tomorrow. And then these were all dug today, right here, and also over here. Okay, now it's time to make the chili. They're making me cry. Really strong.
good.
It smells really good too. Aaron doesn't like to drink his dinner, so whenever I make a soup, it has to be super, super chunky. So this is a really good, I think a really good compromise.
Whenever Laura says she's making soup, I go, oh, I'm not thirsty. Thank you though.
It's a real treat. Okay, now this makes every soup a little bit better. A little bit of cheese, a little bit of Fritos, and green onions from the garden.
Nice.
There you go.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
How's your chili tasting, buddy? Oh, you're eating peaches.
Look, it's right there.
What?
It's right there.
What's right there? Oh, the kitty.
Oh.
Yes, Russell is in there. Russell, what are you doing, bud? Aaron, you better get your hat off. You're gonna get called out by a bunch of people.
Please come in.
It is so good.
Mama, I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm hungry too. Are you eating your dinner?
My fingy.
Uh-oh, what happened to your fingy? Did you bite it in an effort to eat your peach? And that's gonna be it for today's video. It feels super good just to get a little bit of cleanup done outside. The leaf mulch always feels good. Every time I spread leaf mulch, I feel like I'm doing such a good thing for my garden. And then I've got a lot of work ahead of me in terms of Dahlia, packing and cleaning. Part of me kind of wonders, like, maybe I should plant less of those and treat them as an annual. It would definitely be easier in that case, but it is so fun to see your crop grow and multiply, and it's just like you see, I don't know, the potential of what you could have in just a few years. We'll have a lot to give away. I think I'm gonna be giving some of these away this next spring when we're getting ready to plant, just so I can make room for new varieties, because there's a lot of other things I wanna grow too. And the gladiolus that we harvested also multiplied. So we planted one bulb and it came out as 3 big ones and a bunch of little ones surrounding it, and that's really fun to see too. So anyway, we're gonna go enjoy our dinner. Hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.